Hello, this is Isaac with MonsterUI. Today I'm going to show you how my workflow and how I build with MonsterUI. MonsterUI is a UI framework to help you build a very easy, beautiful UI in fast HTML apps. Um, I'm going to assume that you've used a little bit of fast HTML or you're familiar with web development in general. I will be explaining things. But if you're looking to get started, your first time building a web app, you should check out the fast HTML, documentation and get started there. So what I've got is I have no app. The site can't be reached. There is no app. I have an empty main.py file. I've got a couple of blog posts. These are markdown files, two in a folder, so we'll show how we can render those. We want to render these. They are markdown files, so we want them to have nice styling. And we also need an index, so we want some sort of cards that show all the metadata, so like the title and the description, the author, the date, different categories and tags, and images. So how do we make this, look good in a nice, easy way without dealing with all the pain of building nice looking websites. So I've got starting point here, empty file. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do is import fast HTML and import MonsterUI. So the first thing we want to be able to do is we want to, let's start with making our index page. So with fast HTML, we can define our home page just like this. This will automatically give it a route. We can say return hello world. We can serve it. Oh, and we need to define our app. So normally you could start with fast app. We are going to add live equals true, which is going to give us refreshes so that we can have instant feedback on what we're doing. And we are also going to add our our MonsterUI headers. What this is doing is it's going to be adding not just Franken UI styling, but Daisy UI styling and Highlight JS styling, and so all these will be synced to work together. So let's run our app. We can see we have hello world. So we are in business. So this is what I recommend doing. Getting a setup. You can do this in Jupyter Notebooks. You can do this in Cursor or VS Code or any IDE. But the goal is to get it so that you can see things quickly and you have a quick feedback loop. You really don't want to build the whole thing and then try and debug it and see what went wrong. You kind of want to build step by step. So first thing we want to do when building the main page is we need our posts. So let's get our posts. We can say OS lister posts. So instead of this, we can list our posts. Okay, great. We've got our two file names. It's not really what we want. We actually want the content. It's trying to help here. It's not giving very helpful advice. So let's see. Let's do post content. And we can open go in our post directory, open post for post in all of our posts. Let's see what gets printed here. Post getting started.md. Okay, let's fix that. This is why we have that quick refresh, and there we go. We have our content. Great. So what we really want is we want the metadata from it. So when we look at our posts, we can see it's broken up here. and we want this metadata. So let's go ahead and pull out our metadata. Post meta equals for post in post content. All right, so let's parse our meta, and let's try splitting it. Great. So you can see we have the metadata. It's not quite in the format we want. So let's do that. So we can do YAML.saveload. Cool. Now we have dictionaries that we can work with. So let's start with looking at, say, one of the title. Let's make sure we can pull a title out. Perfect. We can index in, we can get the first one, and we can get a title. So what we can do is we can create a list. Now, you can say, we can take the title for im and post meta. We can say, let's take this a list. Okay. Let's see how this looks. Okay, we have a list. So now we have a list of our titles. So we're pulling out this metadata. What we really want is we don't just really want a list. We want cards. So let's make this a little bit nicer. So instead of a list, an unordered list, let's do a grid. Instead of a list item, let's do a card. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, we've got some cards. So now we're here, we're ready to start building our blog cards. So let's make a small function for that. Blog card. Going to take in the metadata. And here we're going to use our blog card. Perfect. So we've got the same thing. So now we've got this blog card function that we can use to create those. So let's take a look, and we can see what we've got here. We've got a title, a description, an author, a date, categories, and an image. Let's start with adding an image. What I want is I want the image and the content side by side. So there's a few ways we can do that. We can use flex, and we have some flex classes to use. I'm just going to do another grid here, and I'm going to say I want my image. My title. So let's see here. Okay, we've got that. And because this is MonsterUI, we can see it's automatically responsive when it gets too small. So that's kind of cool. So let's keep building. So we have the title. We can add in our description. We can add in the author and the date and the categories. And again, we're just kind of doing this one step at a time here. And that's really important to be able to build this quickly. So cool, we've got all the content on the page. We got the image. We've got it kind of lined up. Let's start making it better. So the title, typically titles are bigger. You can use an H3 to make it bigger. That looks like a good size. Let's see what it looks like a little bit bigger. Might be better. We'll use an H2. For description, we can put that in a paragraph tag. Looks pretty good. Next thing we want to do is author and the date. So we have enums to help with styling. So in this case, I want to say I want the class, and instead of having to remember the string, I can just look at my text-t object, and I have all these stylings available to me. So I can pick, and I can see what's available, and I can pick what I want. Also, for text, we have a few, right now there's only 3, that are really, really useful in a lot of cases. In this case, I'm going to use a muted small. I want the author and the date to be visible, but really the title and the description is what I want people to read first. So I'm going to make these a little bit smaller. All right. There we go. That looks good. However, I don't need these on different lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what's called div fully spaced. AI is trying to help quite a bit. And sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. All right, so we have here, let's see here. Perfect. So this is starting to come together. We've got title, we've got a description, we've got these. Now we can make these categories labels. It's not very pretty having them as lists. There's several different kinds of labels. There's form labels, which are made to look good in forms. The regular labels, these come from MonsterUI, will look nicely here. Now, if you're curious, where you can learn about this, all this stuff is in the documentation here. So if you go to monsterui.answer.ai, there's a tutorial app that you can download and run. But in this case, for cards, you can go to the card reference. It shows the documentation. It shows an example card. It shows, here's another example card that we're building. Several different styles, and shows you really how to build these and what they look like, as well as your typical API reference documentation. For navigation, we have nav bars and sidebars and all kinds of examples there. We have a layout section, so this is where you'd learn a little bit more about the grid, how to use it. You can see a few examples of grid layouts, how these work. We also have these div L-aligned, and we can see the div fully spaced that we used before. We have an example that shows how it works with code. So this is a great place to start. We've got a couple guides on how to deal with layout and spacing. We'll be covering some of that today, but all this information is available and documented. All right, so we are back to our creation of the blog. We have these blog cards. They're a little scrunched up. I'm going to use a trick that's from the spacing tutorial, and that is we can use Tailwind. We can say space dash y dash, we'll say 5. We'll see how that looks. All right, that does not look like what we want, so let's fix that. All right, so what you can see is what space dash y dash 5 did is it gave vertical space along the y-axis, and it gave a spacing of 5 between each element. So it looks a little bit much to me, so I'm going to make the spacing a little bit smaller. You know what? Maybe the 5 was good. Okay. So we've got these blog cards. Again, it automatically made it a little bit responsive. It can be improved, but the defaults give you a starting point to work with. So these blog cards look good. You can see there's a default gap between here. Let's clean up the things a little bit. All right. I'm just going to get rid of this. That is perfectly fine. So we have a blog card. This looks pretty good. Let's start making our posts. So what we need is a route post that takes a file name. And the file name is going to be a string. We can get our content, and this is where it's pretty good at this. It already sees how to open a file, so we can use that again. I don't actually need to parse the metadata, and so I'm going to ignore that for now. But I'm just going to return the content. Perfect. So let's try here to get to our page. Post/y-md. Let's see if one of these works. Fname equals. Okay, cool. So we have our post, we use the query parameter, and we can see the content. This is pretty ugly. We don't actually need necessarily the metadata here. So let's go ahead and fix this. So the first thing we can do is we can use the render markdown function. We'll render it as markdown. That's going to look a little bit better. All right. That is a significant improvement. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of the metadata. We can see we did a content split on that. So let's go ahead and do that again. Okay, we've got that. All right, so let's add a link here. So I'm going to make an anchor tag on the image. And I'm going to say href equals post.to, and we can say meta. Okay, we actually need the file name in our block card. So let's add that file name. Okay, so now we need to pass a file name to the blog card. So let's do that. So here we got all the content in our posts. Let's break this back out. We have all the metadata for our posts. And we have zip those together. Let's see if that worked. It did not. All right. Blog card missing one. I have to pass this. Okay, that's good. So we go here, we click. Very nice. We see it jumped to the page. Very, very good. Cool. All right, so let's take a look, see why this isn't looking very good. So we're not getting any header information here. We are not getting our headers, so why would that be? Do a little test here. Perfect. Okay. Now we have it rendering properly. We can use title to get the title of the blog post. let's do Isaac's blog, and we can title everything with that, Isaac's blog. Perfect. So we've got this linked. We're good to go. We can add a few things. Let's add a, I guess maybe make this a little bit more clear that you're supposed to click on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a, let's try adding it, let's try adding a button. So we can see button, and we can say read more, and we can add a let's add a link there. And now here we're going to have an anchor tag. We're going to give it button styling. And so we can say button t dot primary, and we can tell it it's a UK button, and we can just go ahead and add those together. Concatenate those. So we see this shows up directly next to it. We might want it to be a little bit more spaced than that. So let's just again do another div fully spaced. Spread this out a little bit. Giving things more spacing is a nice way to make things look a little bit fancier. So let's do this. Right, so something was never closed. Let's take a look. Did I get all that right? All right, very nice. We gotta click on the image. We also got a read more button. You can see when it gets small, it still works. So it'll work okay on mobile. It's not the best, but for a default without doing anything at all for mobile, it's not bad. You can see we have some minimal highlighting there. For a code block, we can see we get bullets by default. All right, very nice. Let's add a contact page. Yeah, you could add an about me page with another, whatever content you want. Let's just do a contact page. We already rendered Markdown. So let's say contact me. And we are going to create a form. So with a form, we've got some things that help us out a lot. So we have things called label inputs. Those create both a label and an input for you. That's something that's almost always done, and it gives some default spacing between them. So let's say name, email, label, text area. Message can be a little bit bigger. We can do a submit button. And let's do button t dot primary. So we have a primary button here. Very nice. So if we go to /contact, we've got a contact page. These buttons hover. Everything looks pretty good here. That's all it takes to create a decent looking form. I suppose we can make a little bit of a nav bar for our page. So how can you get to the contact page, without it? So let's start our nav bar. So to create a nav bar, there's a lot of options. But really what we want is we need a container for our nav bar. All these are going to have stylings. We're going to say nav bar, let's say right side. We'll put stuff on the right side. And we can put a nav in there, which we're going to say, here's our home page. And here's our contact page. We don't need this too. This is AI seeing what I did above and thinking we need it. In these cases, we don't, because we don't have any query parameters. Let's go li. Of course, it's not going to show up. Okay, we actually do not need this titled here. Let's get rid of that. Alright, so we have our out list. We need to put an anchor tag for an href, so that was my mistake. Anytime you're using an href to link to something, it's always in an anchor tag. That's normal. Alright, so we've got this. We can click on home, we can click on contact. Very nice. We can add this to our contact page as well, if we would like. Let's see here. Let's see if that works. All right, we've got here, we can navigate back. So we've got our nav bar, you know, and maybe in our nav bar we want something on the left side as well. So instead of having a navigation element, all I really want is something that just says Isaac's blog. I want people to know it's my blog. I could put my name there. And I'm just going to give it, I don't know, an H3. Give it a little bit of size. Very nice. I personally don't like lots of extra space, vertical space, so I'm going to collapse those, but you're welcome to use whatever linter you want. Okay. So now we've got a blog, home and contact page. We link. We have rendered markdown. This has taken about a half hour. I guess the most important thing, we can add a theme route so that we can change from dark to light theme. Everyone loves that. And that is as simple as theme. You know, I don't remember. So let's go take a look at the documentation like we should. We can go on to themes and headers. Again, all this information is here. We've got an example of this theme picker. We can see, okay, this is how we do it. Let's just copy and paste the code, I suppose. All right, let's try going to our theme route. There we are. Let's try a different colored theme. We can still, the button changed colors. Everything still looks good. Very nice. All right. So this is the tutorial of building a very fast blog from scratch with MonsterUI. Of course. Now we've got a link people can go to pick whatever colors they want. I like the light blue theme and the dark violet theme. But play around with it. See what you think. Let me know how you like the library. Love to hear how you build with it.